And now I am very pleased to welcome back onto the Locked On Big Ten podcast. It has been far too long, but this is what happens when you bully your friends over text message, folks, because we have Michael Severe back on the show, the host of the aptly named Severe and Benning in the Morning on 1620 The Zone. You see it on his hat. If you are watching this on WKYC in Cleveland, if you're listening through the podcast audio medium, you don't see the hat, but the host of Severe and Benning in the Morning on 1620 The Zone in Omaha, Nebraska. Michael, it is a pleasure to talk to you. It is a pleasure to have you back on this podcast. And we are going to be previewing weekend number 2 of Big Ten football.
Yeah, I did not bully you. I just asked a simple question. Are you going to have me on your show again? And because you told me last time it went well, I didn't believe you because you didn't have me back on again. So I was just confirming.
It always goes well. We used to be co-hosts of the great and historic The Bottom Line on AM 590 ESPN Omaha on a few occasions. We are acquaintances, as you love to say, and it went very well, but I'm a busy man. I have a lot of people to talk to all throughout the Big Ten Conference, and that's just how I am. If we're keeping track, by the way, I've had you on this podcast at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. How many times has Big Ten Ben Stevens been featured on Severe and Benning in the Morning on 1620 The Zone in Omaha?
Yeah, we're a highly rated
my!
That we have certain levels of guests that we have on based off of their level. So that's kind of not my fault.
All right. Well, this interview is over. The preview of weekend 2 of football will be just Ben Stevens now in the Big Ten. That is all you get.
Can go 0-7 again in the Big Ten. I can't believe 0-7 against the spread. That's almost. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's improbable.
It's as impressive as going a perfect 7-0, some might say. If I go, maybe some have said it. Some have said it.
No one's ever said that.
Maybe some have. I have. That's how I fell asleep at least on Sunday night.
Let me just check something. Did Ohio State play?
They did.
Did they play Nebraska?
They did.
And you lost that one.
27 points, Michael, is a large spread.
What's the average points Nebraska has lost to Ohio State by since they've been in the Big Ten?
I don't know, a lot. 2 of the last 3 matchups were decided by 40 plus
points. Like 39.
Okay, that's fair. This is why you're a smart man.
It went down because of this game.
You're a smart man, and this is why you are here, to give the people the real picks, the real predictions against the spread, over-under totals. We'll get to all of that of week 2 of Big Ten football. But there's only 6 games this weekend, not 7, of course, because Wisconsin and Nebraska was canceled due to a COVID-19 increase within the Wisconsin football program. 12 positive cases, 6 coaches, 6 players. We discussed that all yesterday on the Locked On Big Ten podcast, Michael. Well, let's talk about the fallout now, at least from the Nebraska side. There have been some crazy things happening in Lincoln over the past 48 hours. Nebraska trying to schedule a game against UT Chattanooga. That was denied by the Big Ten. In your best mind and how you're seeing this all play out, Michael, what exactly is happening in Nebraska right now?
I don't think anything's changed going back to, July. All Nebraska wants to do is play football games. That's the goal. They want to play as many football games as possible. It's a big part of the community. You lived here in Nebraska. You understand how important it is. And one of the big things is realize there are hotels and there are restaurants and there are bars in the city of Lincoln. And they were all expecting, even though there were no crowds in the stadium, they were all expecting a bump in business, right? We have a couple of places that just opened this summer, and they expected this was going to be our first day in the black. We were going to make money on this day. And then all of a sudden, because of Wisconsin and because of what happened with their positive test, they weren't going to have a game. And so Nebraska's doing their best to both stay fresh on the field and to be able to help the city of Lincoln. And that's why they wanted to have a game, which is understandable. On the other hand, there are a lot of people here. And I say they're the vocal minority, right? They're the 1%ers who write in, who call in, that are saying to themselves, man, Wisconsin didn't need to shut it down. Sometimes you end up having your 3rd string quarterback. Sometimes you have your 4th string quarterback. As you may know, Nebraska played a couple of games back in 1994 when they were undefeated. They played with one quarterback who had a collapsed lung. They played with another quarterback who didn't throw the ball the entire game and handed the ball to Lawrence Phillips 31 times in order to beat Kansas State. So it can be done without your quarterback, and you can still win games. And so that's the thing. They're like, well, why can't you play? I try to explain to them, the head coach won't be playing. It won't be a part of the game. I'm assuming the offensive coordinator probably is someone else who has it. And then the next person to Graham Mertz would be the quarterback's coach. And so those are probably the 3 people who could call plays who will not be there. But Nebraska fans are like, you didn't have to shut down. You could have had the game anyway. Let's just play. and they're upset. And they're upset with Barry Alvarez. They're upset with the Big Ten for not stepping in. Some are upset for even having this rule, having the loophole that allows a school to shut down or pause for this amount of time. So they're mad at everybody.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. First, I'll start with the idea that Nebraska tried to reschedule this game to play a non-conference opponent in a conference-only season. When this report started to come out and the indications seemed that this game might be on the brink between Wisconsin and Nebraska, if Bill Moose and Ronnie Green were so adamant about playing a football game this Saturday, why not try to work with the Big Ten on Monday night and Tuesday afternoon and even into Wednesday to try to say, hey, is there anything we can do, when it seemed, at least that right now, that Nebraska kind of went on a standalone basis as they had before, and now they're at odds again with the conference?
On Monday at the press conference following his practice, Paul Chryst said he believes the game was going to happen. He said it. He goes, I believe we're going to play this football game. As of Tuesday, most people thought that they still were going to play the football game, even though Paul Chryst had tested positive, at least 2 quarterbacks were down, and we know what's happening with Jack Cohn. So at that point, they wouldn't be working to try to find something else because of the fact that they thought the game was going to happen. I can honestly tell you that Nebraska's had contingency plans for every single thing. They had already had conversations, trust me, long before Monday with other teams about the opportunity to play. Matter of fact, the South Dakota State coach had said, even though they're not playing right now, they're not playing until the spring, that he would be willing and ready to play a football game on a short bus drive down on this Saturday. So he said that yesterday. So it was that team, and there were some other ones out there that Nebraska was working with just besides Tennessee, Chattanooga. So they were constantly trying to figure out ways to play football games. In the end, this is on the Big Ten for making a schedule that had such limited wiggle room. The original schedule had 2 bye weeks, maybe even 3 if you're going to go with that week before the Big Ten title game. That would have been able to take care of this. You simply would have done, and I don't know if you've ever noticed it yet, but if you go to December 5th on your scheduler on your phone, you'll see a whole bunch of games that have been rescheduled by the ACC, by the SEC, by other conferences. That's because they left that date open. Big Ten didn't do that. So now they're stuck, and all of a sudden now Nebraska is losing again. Remember this, Ben, for the second time in 3 years, they're losing their home opener. That's important to have a home opener. That's important. That's just twice they've lost this now. Once because of Akron and weather, and now once because of Wisconsin. They have reasons to be upset. It doesn't make any sense to me if you can prove that Tennessee Chattanooga has done everything they can protocol-wise. They've done all the testing. If you can prove that they are in compliance with the rules you use, they should let them play the football game.
Listen, I understand Nebraska's frustration. It pulls at my heartstrings as a Big Ten guy, as Big Ten Ben, but also getting my professional start and living in Omaha, Nebraska for 2 years. I will always have a soft spot for the Huskers. This is tough for me. I don't like to see them fighting. I don't like to see them bickering. I thought we were done with this in August, and here we are at the end of October in the same spot. It just is tough for me. I don't like seeing it. It makes my days even more emotional than they need to be.
I got a DM from somebody today, and I'll read it to you really quick.
Please.
It said, Husker number said, do you think we're stuck in the Big Ten forever? I don't know how much more of this fan base can take of this crap. I know money is everything, but it really is hurting the Huskers. There are a large number of fans of the Huskers that hate being in the Big Ten because they don't get the money, so they don't care about the money. They just know that the Big Ten seems to constantly be on the opposite side of whatever Nebraska wants. And so they're always going to be up. This is never going to be a good marriage. I grew up a Penn State fan. You know that. Penn State, since I was a little kid, I lived right outside of Happy Valley when I was 8, 9 years old. This is a great time. 78, 79 for Penn State. We're talking national championship teams, or at least on the brink of them. And trust me, Penn State fans did not like being in the Big Ten for the first 10 years. They thought the schedules were bad. They didn't like overall the way they were treated. They didn't think they got any rights at all. They came in as a dominant power right away, and they were beating up on all the Big Ten teams. So it seemed like the Big Ten was trying to get back at them. I understand exactly how the Huskers feel.
And listen, Nebraska's glory days were when they played in the Big 8. Even the Big 12 is more in Nebraska's DNA than the idea of the Big 10. When you come from an outside perspective and look at Nebraska being a part of the Big 10, it might seem like they're at odds. But when you live in Nebraska, and the biggest thing in the state on Saturdays during the fall is the Nebraska football team, and their roots are in the Big 12, the Big 8 of former days, this is understandable that there's frustration. However, We are where we are right now. And I agree with
Yes.
you. We can be mad at how the Big Ten handled this back in August, postponing the season initially, not just delaying it like the SEC did till the end of September, and having some of that flexibility they have built in with the Jenga 41 schedule. I completely agree with you. However, we are in the present right now, and we're hopefully doing what we can so that this is a one-game thing, and Wisconsin and Nebraska are back in action coming up for week number 3. So I have to ask you real quickly, though.
There's no chance for one game. You know that. This is going to happen.
I know. I'm an optimist. I have a Big Ten hat. You know that I ride with the conference.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to be an optimist at this moment because in the present reality of what we face, this is not the great makings for a football season of any stature, but at least we're trying our best at the moment. So I'm hoping we're going to be okay. I have to ask you, though, even with a 4th-string quarterback, if Wisconsin would have played Danny Vandenboom this week against Nebraska, do you think the Huskers win?
I have to pick on Sunday night. The worst thing about doing Big Red Wrap-Up every Tuesday is we have to have our scores in very early. So I either make the pick on Sunday night or Monday morning. I had Nebraska. I thought Nebraska would win this game. That's the other part about all of this. Nebraska fans knew that they have the talent this year to be able to beat Wisconsin. We all thought during the offseason there's a good chance that Nebraska was going to beat Wisconsin, right? They make this latest schedule like, that's fine. They'll start off 1-1. Wisconsin comes here and Nebraska beats them. That's what we all thought. I picked 27-20 on Sunday night before I knew about anything else. So
even with Graham Mertz,
I believe that Nebraska would have beat them with Graham Mertz. Yes. I don't see. The thing is, they didn't show a lot against Ohio State. I don't even understand. People are like, well, look at all the stuff they did with the 2 quarterbacks. They were doing stuff. For example, have you ever been to a cold open or a soft open for a restaurant? You ever done that?
I have not. I'm not that cool. I don't get those exclusive invites.
You go to a soft open. So soft opens have all of these great, really cool foods, and there's these dishes they came up with and ideas they've had, but most of them never make it into the regular menu. It's just something to get you in the door, and that's all Saturday was. Saturday had nothing to do about what Nebraska was going to do on a consistent basis. They didn't even play wide receivers that they're going to play against Wisconsin and everybody else. This team, Nebraska's team, would have, in my opinion, would have beaten Wisconsin.
All right. Well, enough about Nebraska, Wisconsin in the game that is not, because there are still 6 great games on the slate for this Friday night and Saturday, and we are here to preview weekend number 2 of Big Ten football. Michael, we are going to go in reverse chronological order. Last week we went chronologically, starting with the Friday night opener of Wisconsin, Illinois. This week we flip that on its head and start with a Saturday night primetime matchup, the top 20 tilt. The battle between Ohio State and Penn State, a game that has been circled by Big Ten fans since this 3rd iteration of the schedule was released. The 3rd-ranked Buckeyes on the road in Happy Valley, taking on the 18th-ranked Nittany Lions. Ohio State, a 12-point road favorite. The over-under total 63.5. Michael Severe, let's get it rolling. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah. I don't know where you get that 12.5 because it's down to 11.5, but I'll tell you this. I have been a Penn State fan since I was a little kid. I don't talk about it much around here. But it's the only other team I follow LSU pretty well, and I follow Penn State, and I follow Nebraska a lot. That's not enough. 11.5 is not enough. 12.5 is not enough. Penn State is going to get rolled. Ohio State's got something to prove. Ohio State's got now if this was a whiteout game, then yeah, I would say it's going to be a close game, even with Noah Cain being out, even with being down to your 3rd-string running back, even though with the defense that without Micah Parsons, we saw last week, had its moments, but also is vulnerable in the secondary. So all of those things all put together, and the fact that Ohio State needs to put up numbers because Clemson's going to put up numbers, because Alabama puts up numbers, I would say that I say 2 touchdowns, minimum 2 touchdowns.
I would agree with you. History is on the side of this being a closer matchup. 2 of the last 3 meetings decided by a single point. The only one that wasn't was last year. Ohio State won 28-17. 4 years ago in State College, Penn State was victorious. 2 years ago in State College, 2018, one of those
should have won that.
Decided right. One of the games that was decided by a single point. In my mind, it's what Penn State team will show up. Are they still that elite team in the Big Ten East, right below Ohio State? We did not see that team week 1 against Indiana. They looked sloppy. 10 penalties for 100 yards. Sean Clifford was still the same inconsistent quarterback we saw in 2019, 2 interceptions against the Hoosiers. In my mind, I think this will be more of a competitive game and more of a competitive showing than Penn State put out last week. However, I agree with you. I cannot pick against Ohio State at this point. I think they roll. I think their offense is just too good. I think Justin Fields is even better than his historic year last year, which is crazy to think for the rest of the Big Ten Conference. 12 points, 11.5, 12.5, whatever it is by the time game time rolls around. Take Ohio State, lay the points. I agree with you there. So
notice I picked Indiana to win outright last week, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, sprinkle on the money line.
Rutgers. Hey, and Rutgers.
You're a smart man. This is why you're here. This is why you're here for weekend
making
2.
Money.
This is why you're here of weekend 2 of Big Ten football, to preview anything, to give your picks. Both Michael and I agree for the game. ABC primetime, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We have Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, Maria Taylor, Tom Rinaldi, everybody on the call. College Game Day will be in State College as well. The second game on the docket for us, Northwestern in Iowa, a battle in the Big Ten West that, with Wisconsin being out this week, is wide open. Iowa, a 2.5-point favorite, the over-under total 46. Michael Severe, your one wrong pick last week was trusting the Hawkeyes in their opener against Purdue. Are you going back to the black and gold this week?
You know, and it's funny, the reason why I picked Iowa in that game is I thought Petrus, there wouldn't be much of a drop-off. And this is the most skillful Iowa team. And, of course, we cover a little bit of Iowa. They're right across the river from us. And so this is the most skill they've had since 2010. I mean, that's going back away. With the Smith brothers and how well they play, and Laporta at tight end and the 3 running backs. And I know they replaced a lot on defense, and I loved Epinesa. I thought they had the ability to slow Purdue down, which they did most of the game, but I thought they would close. You see, Iowa wins close games, and Purdue loses close games. This was different, and so I was wrong. In this one, this is a line, and I don't know how much you follow betting, but when you see a home team less than a key number as a favorite, say 2.5 like it is right now, that's stinky. That's a stinky line. They're trying to say to you, right, oh, take Iowa. All you need is a field goal to win it. You'll be fine. I don't want Northwestern to win because I have a side bet with someone else about how good Northwestern can be, but this is a Northwestern win. Northwestern, yes, they were impressive against Maryland. Let's take all that out of it. These two teams play crazy games. They have played the weirdest games with weird fumbles and 10-10 kind of ties all the way throughout the game, all that stuff. Northwestern right now with Peyton Ramsey and the way they play, I think they're the better team. And as much as I'd rather see Iowa win this because of the bet I have with Northwestern, I think Northwestern starts the season off 2-0. They win this outright.
That would be insane. That would be a real indication Northwestern could be a factor in the Big Ten West race. Do you think the Wildcats have that potential?
Yeah, they do.
Tough to bet.
You know, they do. It's. Here's the thing. They're one of the best teams on and off ever. With off year, they're going to have an on year. It's what Fitz has done. And we know the defense is going to be good with everybody coming back. And even with the opt-outs, still, you're talking something like of the top 44 players, something like 39 are back, which is incredible. You just don't see those kind of percentages, even with the opt-outs. So I would say that, yes, Northwestern's a part, especially if Iowa starts 0-2 in the division. I mean, and then Wisconsin's missing games. And Nebraska doesn't have a division loss, obviously. But yeah, sure. It puts Northwestern right in the center. I know a lot of people that bet Northwestern to win the West in Vegas.
That wouldn't be the craziest thing. You mentioned their returning production. The first most returning production in all of college football is what the Wildcats got back. And if they had an increase at quarterback, which they could only go up from last year, having 5 total quarterbacks only throw 6 total touchdowns, and Peyton Ramsey brings that Big Ten experience, things would look good for Northwestern, who were the 2018 Big Ten West champs, and their linebacking core. Blake Gallagher, Patty Fisher, and Chris Bergen could be the best 3 linebackers in that position group in the Big Ten Conference, or at least the Big Ten West. You saw what they did last week to Maryland. 43 points, 537 total yards, 325 on the ground. I agree with Michael. Throw that away. Maryland is terrible. We'll get to that in a little bit. Iowa also looked pretty good offensively. You talked about the weapons they have. I thought Spencer Petras would be able to deliver a little bit better, but they had a balanced running attack. Mekhi Sargent, Tyler Goodson looked good. My biggest thing for the Hawkeyes this week, get the ball to Amir Smith-Marset. He only had 2 carries and not a single reception. He is one of the best playmakers in the Big Ten West. Give him the ball. Yeah. Iowa had 460 total yards last Saturday against Purdue. They just couldn't finish. They shot themselves in the foot and could not convert those yards into scores, into touchdowns. But
that's
I think
the first
Iowa,
game they've lost, by the way. You know, that's the first game they've lost where they were less than 6-point favorite since 2014 when Nebraska and Bo Pelini beat them. That was the first game Iowa lost in that situation in all of those years. That's why I thought they would do it. Kurt Ferentz cost them that game, by the way. Kurt Ferentz at the end of the half did one of the conservative things he always does, where he settled for the field goal instead of going for the touchdown. Those 4 points are so important. And so many times, Kurt Ferentz cost his team a touchdown and settles for a field goal. It's just what he does.
That's why we go to the local knowledge right there of Michael Severe. He can pull back the facts from 2014 and those spreads and everything to get you wrapped into it. That is why he is here on the Locked On Big Ten show. You mentioned it. Iowa was sloppy. 2 turnovers, 4 of 13 on third down last week. I do think they rectify things this week. I don't think there's a chance this game is decided by more than a touchdown. I think it will be about that field goal spread, 3, and I would lean with Iowa. I think they win. It could be a 27-24 game, but I'm going to disagree. I think Iowa gets it done this week. Good for your long-standing prop bet against Northwestern.
I would love that. Ride. I'll give you a score. I think the score is going to be 31-21 Northwestern, and I would hate to see it because I have to hear it all week long afterwards, but I think it's 31-21.
Who is this bet with? Can you name names?
Sure. It's my partner in the morning, Damon Benning.
Damon Benning.
The worst thing is we made the bet back when they had the original schedule in August.
Okay.
You know, this is the same schedule, but you know what? It's a bet.
You're a man of your word, though. You held it
most
up.
times. Yeah.
And that's why we appreciate you. All right. So let's get to the next afternoon game, that 3:30 p.m. slot. This one on the Big Ten Network, Indiana and Rutgers. A battle for first place in the Big Ten East. That's what we're talking about here, folks. Two unbeaten powerhouses going at it, helmet on a helmet. Indiana, a 10-point road favorite on the road in Piscataway. The over-under total sits at 53. This line to me, if you would have told me a week ago, IU would be a 10-point favorite over Rutgers, I would have said, take my mortgage of my future house in 25 years and throw it on the line. Give me the Hoosiers. Is there any chance Rutgers can start 2-0 or at least cover?
Okay, so first of all, you're the Big Ten podcast guy, right? This is Locked On Big Ten, right?
There you go. At least you know where you are.
Do you know who Rutgers played in the first game of college football history?
College football history?
Yeah, first game. Rutgers played the first game in college football history.
Oh, Princeton.
Thank you. Okay, good. So you got that. Okay, so listen. So here's the problem with Rutgers, and I like them. And Noah Vedral's the quarterback. Very excited. Cruikshank, the kid who transferred in from Wisconsin, he's there as well. They've got transfers galore. They got 6 turnovers last week. 6 of them. The only reason I picked them, but again, they lose that game with all those turnovers. Turnover regression would tell me that's not going to happen again. I don't believe Indiana is going to turn the ball over. I think Penix also found something in terms of his rhythm at the end of that Penn State game. Those last 2 drives, the plays he made. Now, as long as they didn't spend Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday celebrating the fact they finally beat Penn State, I think Indiana covers this number. But there is the chance, and I'm all about, I like analytics. I like the idea of a lot of different things, but no more than anything else do I believe in is momentum, right? And there's reverse momentum too. And sometimes when you win a big game, the reverse momentum puts you in a situation where all you've been thinking about all week is how good you were last week, and that cost you in your next game. So I worry about that. But as of right now, I would take Indiana to cover the 10.
If you add Michigan State turning the ball over on downs on 4th down last week as well, that happened twice. Rutgers forced 9 turnovers rather. That is very impressive out of a defense, but I think that says more about Michigan State and how bad they're going to be this year than it does about Rutgers. And you bring up a great point about that offense. Noah Vedra looked great at times. He had some flashes. The run game with Isaiah Pacheco looked good as well. Yep. But overall, it wasn't anything that was totally like, wow, mind-blowing. Only 276 yards of total offense. 4 of their 6 scoring drives last week for Rutgers were 26 yards or less.
Right.
Not great. I mean, they took advantage of turning Michigan State over, so you have to compliment them there. But it's not like they sustained drives and put plays together to go down the length of the field. They took advantage when they needed to. But unless they turn Indiana over 7 times, there's not a chance in my mind that IU does not win and does not cover this spread. You talked about Michael Penix Jr. and him making plays late in that game. I thought he started to find a rhythm as well. I think they get their offensive weapons and Watt Fillier and Ty Freifogel more involved than they were last week in the pass game. In the defense, although the numbers against Penn State weren't great, giving up more than 450 yards, they were on the field forever. More than 40 minutes were spent on the field for that Indiana defense last week. 5.5 yards per play, though, and they also did force Penn State to turn the ball over 3 times. So I like what I saw out of Kane Womack and his defensive group for the Hoosiers. I think this is one of the safest bets I will have all year, and now because I said that, it's going to come back right in my face. Indiana wins. Indiana covers that 10-point margin, no doubt about it. So
they also have the best name for the wide receivers, though, real quick. You have Wop Wop, there it is, and the Fry Guy. Yeah.
Hold on a second.
That's my nickname for them.
Did you just come up with that, or is that a long-standing thing?
No, I've been last year when Nebraska got beaten by Indiana and Wop Fillier caught like 91 balls. That's an exaggeration. I think he had 13. I came up with them. Yeah, it was Wop Wop, there it is, and the Fry Guy.
All right. Well, those are you said them. You said them out loud. So there we go. Wop Wop, there it is, and the Fry Guy. Also, Peyton Hendershot, their talented tight end. Regardless, let's get to the noon games on Saturday. Another Big Ten West battle. Purdue heading on the road to Cheyenne, the Purdue Cannon against Illinois. The Boilermakers a 7-point favorite. The over-under total 58.5. Michael Severe, can Purdue start 2-0, and does Lovey in Illinois start 0-2?
Well, when we picked these games before the season, I certainly had Illinois losing this one. I do believe it's going to be sloppy. I just have a feeling that these two teams are going to produce a really sloppy game. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you look around the conference, look around football this weekend, a lot of win games. There's a trend. If a game is projected over 20 miles an hour win, that it usually means the under, and it usually means sloppy because you're going to have some picks because of what happens with interceptions and stuff. And I think this is one of those games. I think it's very sloppy. So it would be crazy to take the 7 in Illinois. It wouldn't be nuts because I could see this game just being really low scoring, old school nooner Big Ten, like 14-9, something silly like that. My heart would say because of how much I like Purdue in terms of the being able to score against Illinois secondary, which is really bad. If you saw it last week, the secondary was horrible, but the front seven's not bad. And if Purdue can't run the ball, I'm curious if they can protect the quarterback because Illinois can get up to the quarterback a little bit. So if I was going to have a lean in this one, I would certainly say give me Illinois and the 7 because of a sloppy game. But if I actually had to bet it, like my money, I probably would take Purdue and give the number.
I agree with you. I think Purdue will be able to run the ball. I think Xander Horvath has come in his last 2 appearances in the Old Oaken Bucket last year, more than 160 yards. He did a very similar thing in the opener against Iowa last week. Although the defense gave up a lot of yards to Iowa, 460, I'm still high, and I can't believe I'm saying this about a Bob Diaco run defense, but I'm still high on the Purdue defense. I think their front 4, Lorenzo Neal, George Karlaftis, and Derek Barnes, one of the most talented groups in all of the Big Ten Conference. I still rely on that, and I think they make Illinois struggle, as we saw last week against Wisconsin. 218 total yards, 2 of 10 on third down, no explosiveness, 4 yards per pass attempt for Brandon Peters, who looked a lot better with his legs than he did with his arm. And Brandon, you have other options besides Joshi Maturbebe. Like, there are other options. He just targeted him nonstop. I would lean Purdue, lay the points, take them, Boilermakers over the Illini. So one more game in that noon slate. It is the big noon kickoff. It is Paul Bunyan's trophy, and it is between Michigan State and 13th ranked Michigan. Michigan, a 24.5-point favorite. That's a whole lot of points. The over-under total 52.5. Do you still take the Wolverines with all those points?
So now let me tell you this. I think Michigan is much better than most people had them projected coming in the season. I do. I thought last week they had a really good chance to beat Minnesota. I didn't think it'd be that much. But I really like them. I think Joe Milton is very impressive. He impressed me in terms of not just the fact that he was calm as a freshman or redshirt freshman making his first start. But the thing I really liked about him is he'll get out of the pocket and he'll make things happen and look down the field before that happens. So I really enjoyed watching him play. I think Michigan overall, we know what the talent they had, even though as much as they lost going to the NFL, I like them as a team overall. I think they really they may struggle as the season goes along, but I think the only other loss they might have is to Ohio State. I really think they could run the table. I like everything they have, especially when it comes to that young defense. Now, when they play against teams that can out-athlete them in the secondary, they can really struggle. We've seen that before with Ohio State. But overall, I like Michigan this season, and I think Michigan beats Michigan State by five touchdowns, somewhere in there.
I have a couple hot takes I'm working on. One of the most immediate being that week 3, Michigan and Indiana, that game will decide the runner-up in the Big Ten East. And secondly, I believe the game on December 12th between Michigan and Ohio State could be a battle of unbeatens. That is high I am on Michigan now, because at the beginning, I was cold on them. I was one of those people that was critical. I said, this schedule is so difficult. They could go 4-4, and I would not be surprised. But right now, I'm buying Michigan. Joe Milton, so in control of Josh Gaddis's offense last week, 15 of 22, 225 yards through the air, 1 touchdown. The run game for Michigan averaged 8.3 yards per carry as a team. Hassan Haskins had 6 carries for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that young Michigan defense up front, they applied pressure. They made Tanner Morgan look confused. They got to him. Kwity Paye, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Michigan as a team had 5 sacks total against Minnesota, making a good returning offense look confused at times throughout that game. I don't think Rocky Lombardi has a shot. I think he's going to be on his butt a lot, and I think we could see 2 to 3 picks. It's going to be a very tough year in East Lansing. They don't need me to tell them that. They know all the circumstances of year 0 of Mel Tucker. I think this is going to be like a 48-10 win for Michigan, even with the 24.5-point spread the Wolverines cover. So our final game is tonight. Minnesota and Maryland. The Gophers trying to get back in the win column, a 19.5-point road favorite on the road in College Park, over under total 61. Do we need to say anything more except for Maryland sucks and Minnesota wins and covers?
I think Maryland does suck. They don't have any of the skill players they've had the last couple of years where they could make explosive plays. The quarterback, Tua's little brother, was horrible last week. I'm with you. I think you're right. I don't think there's a chance of anything but a blowout. The 20 points is a lot, but Minnesota has something to prove now after last week. And so I don't think they'll pull guys. If they're up 21, if they're up 28, they're going to continue to try to score to try to prove something. And so I think you're right. I think it's a cover, and I think Minnesota blows out Maryland on the best campus of any campus in the Big Ten.
You think so?
College
Park is the best campus?
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Oh,
they filmed several movies there.
Oh, which ones? When Harry Met Sally?
No, not Harry Met Sally. I don't know if you ever saw St. Elmo's Fire.
No, I did not. You know we do this. This is our
didn't.
thing.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love
to
incorporate that now in the Locked On Big Ten podcast.
You're welcome.
I don't think Mike Locksley gets year number 3. That's another hot take I'm working on, because this talented roster is way too talented for them to be this bad. When you give up 43 points to Northwestern, I think Minnesota is going to equal that output, if not more. That offense is still very good. Tanner Morgan will figure it out. Mohamed Ibrahim last week, 140 yards and 2 touchdowns against a stout Michigan defense we just hyped up. Rashad Bateman still had 9 grabs for 101 yards. The offense will figure itself out. The defense had to return a lot and replace a lot of starters. 7 starters lost from the 2019 team from Minnesota. I think they figure it out a little bit defensively. It's a big win for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Puts up a lot of points against the Terps. Lay the points, take Gophers. That is how we see weekend 2 of the Big Ten slate. 6 great matchups. Yes.
Yeah.
There have been some headlines that have made us a little bit wary, but don't push the panic button yet, because we still have 6 great games for this Friday, all getting underway tonight with Minnesota and Maryland, and then 5 great games on Saturday. And he is a very great guy, my good friend Michael Severe of the Severe and Benning in the Morning Show on 1620 The Zone in Omaha, Nebraska. Now back on the Locked On Big Ten podcast. SNS rides one more time, my friend.
I always worry when you call me your friend.
We're acquaintances.
We're acquaintances, right?
I know. I get it.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. When the world returns to normal, I will fly back to Omaha either for the College World Series or a Nebraska game, and then maybe I make an appearance on the Severe and Benning Show in the morning. Who knows?
In person, I'll take that. We'll do that.
Okay, cool. I'm also on Nick Hanley's show, so it doesn't even matter. Like, I don't even need you, so it's all good.
It's the big time show, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Michael Severe, once again, 6 great games of Big Ten football.